intimacy. Men often believe women sleep with men because of love, attraction, or pure chemistry. But the truth is darker. There are hidden psychological triggers deep inside the female mind that can flip the switch of desire almost instantly. Most men never discover them. But Machiavelli understood power, and power isn't just about politics. It's about psychology, control, and influence. Today, I'm going to reveal 4 hidden psychological triggers that make women sleep with men. Stay with me until the end, because the last trigger is the most dangerous of all. Trigger 1. The power of emotional dominance. Women are not attracted to weakness. They are drawn to men who radiate emotional dominance. That doesn't mean aggression, it means control. When you stay calm under pressure, when you don't chase, when you make decisions without hesitation, she feels it. Subconsciously, she associates that stability with protection, with leadership, and with primal strength. Machiavelli once said, "It's better to be feared than loved, if you can't be both." In attraction, emotional dominance is feared and desired at the same time. When a woman sees that you cannot be rattled, she begins to imagine what it feels like to surrender to your frame. And that is when desire takes over. But let me go deeper. Emotional dominance isn't about yelling louder or making demands. It's about the quiet authority that fills a room when you enter it. It's in the way you hold eye contact just a second longer than most men dare. It's in the way you respond to her tests, not with defensiveness, but with amused confidence. When she tries to shake you, to see if you'll crumble like the others, and you simply smile, that's when something shifts inside her mind. You see, women test men constantly. Not because they want you to fail, but because they're searching desperately, searching for the man who won't. Every tantrum, every emotional outburst, every seemingly irrational moment is a subconscious test of your frame. Can you hold it? Can you remain the rock when she becomes the storm? Most men fail this test within minutes. They react, they justify, they seek her approval. But the man with true emotional dominance, he doesn't need her approval. He already has his own. And paradoxically, that's exactly what makes her crave his validation even more. She finds herself wanting to please the one man who doesn't need to be pleased. This creates a psychological loop that can become addictive for her. Think about it. When has a woman ever fantasized about the man she could control? Never. It's always the man who controls himself that she can't stop thinking about. The man who remains unmoved by her emotions becomes the center of her emotional world. Ironic, isn't it? The less you need her emotionally, the more she needs you. Trigger 2. The mystery effect. Psychology proves that the mind is addicted to curiosity. What we cannot fully figure out, we cannot stop chasing. Women sleep with men who keep them guessing. If she can predict every move you make, her attraction fades. But when you are mysterious, when your words carry double meaning, when you don't reveal everything at once, when you disappear and reappear with purpose, you trigger obsession. Machiavelli believed that power comes from being unpredictable. The same is true in attraction. The unknown is magnetic, and the darker the mystery, the deeper her imagination runs. She doesn't just want you. She wonders what else is hidden beneath the surface. That curiosity alone can be enough to lead her into intimacy. Now, let's talk about what mystery really means. Most men make the fatal mistake of oversharing. They tell her their entire life story on the first date. They explain their feelings, their insecurities, their past relationships, their future plans, everything. They think this builds connection, and in some ways, it does. But it doesn't build desire. Desire lives in the gaps, in the spaces between what is said and what is suggested. When you speak, leave room for interpretation. When she asks you a direct question, sometimes the most powerful answer is one that creates more questions. Not through deception, but through selective revelation. Think of it like a master storyteller. The best stories don't explain everything. They hint, they foreshadow, they leave breadcrumbs that make you desperate to know what happens next. You should be the same way in her mind. She should go to bed at night replaying your conversations, trying to decode what you meant, wondering what you're thinking, imagining what you might do next. This is where most men lose the game. They think availability equals interest, so they text back immediately. They're always free when she calls. They make themselves completely transparent and utterly predictable. And then they wonder why she loses interest. But the man who understands mystery, he knows that his time has weight because it's not always available. He knows that his attention has value because it's not given freely to everyone. He knows that his thoughts remain powerful precisely because he doesn't verbalize every single one. There's a psychological phenomenon called the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency to remember incomplete or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. When you leave things unfinished in her mind, she literally cannot stop thinking about you. Her brain will obsess over the incomplete narrative you've created. This is not manipulation. This is understanding how the human mind actually works. Here's the dangerous truth. Mystery doesn't just attract, it makes her create the fantasy for you. And fantasies are far more powerful than facts. While other men are busy explaining themselves, you remain the enigma she desperately wants to solve. And that desperation, that becomes desire. Trigger 3, the validation trap. Every woman craves validation, but not from every man. In fact, when you validate her too quickly, too easily, she loses interest. But when you withhold validation and give it only when it's earned, you create tension. That tension becomes intoxicating. Think of it like this. Every compliment from other men is background noise. But when you calm, selective, controlled finally give her a word of approval, it feels priceless. She'll do more. Risk more and think more about you just to earn it again. This is not manipulation, it's psychology. Desire grows in the space between doubt and certainty. Machiavelli taught rulers to control rewards carefully, never giving too much too soon. In attraction, this same principle creates longing, and longing often leads to surrender. Let me paint you a picture of how this works in real life. Imagine two men meeting the same woman. The first man showers her with compliments from the moment he sees her. He tells her she's beautiful, intelligent, amazing, special, all within the first conversation. He validates every opinion she expresses. He agrees with everything she says. He makes it abundantly clear that he's impressed and interested. Now the second man. He's pleasant but measured. He notices her, but he's not overwhelmed by her. When she says something genuinely insightful, he acknowledges it with a simple nod and interesting perspective. When she tries to impress him, he remains unimpressed, not rude, just neutral. And then, later in the conversation, when she's actually earned it through demonstrating real substance, he gives one genuine compliment. Just one. But it lands with the weight of 100. Which man do you think occupies more space in her mind that night? The first man has shown his hand completely. She knows she has his validation. There's nothing left to wonder about, nothing left to earn, nothing left to pursue. The game is over before it began, and she won without even trying. Where's the satisfaction in that? But the second man, he's created what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, the most powerful form of psychological conditioning known to behavioral science. It's the same principle that makes gambling addictive. The reward comes, but not every time, and not predictably. This creates a dopamine pattern in the brain that is incredibly powerful. When your validation is rare but genuine, it becomes something she actively seeks. She'll find herself trying harder in your presence, dressing better when she knows she'll see you, bringing up topics she thinks might impress you, seeking your opinion over others, all because your approval has become the prize she hasn't quite won yet. And here's the darkest part of this truth. The less you give, the more valuable it becomes. Scarcity creates value. This is economics, but it's also psychology. When you're the one man whose validation she can't quite secure, she begins to question her own value. Not in a destructive way, but in a way that makes her want to rise to your standard. This is powerful because it flips the entire script. Instead of you chasing her validation, she's chasing yours. And the person doing the chasing is always at a psychological disadvantage. Most men flood women with validation. They think it builds attraction. It doesn't. It builds her ego and kills her desire. The few who control it, they're the ones she remembers at night. They're the ones she can't get out of her head. They're the ones she'll cross lines for, just to finally feel approved by the one man whose approval actually matters. Trigger 4. The dark confidence of risk. And now the most dangerous trigger of all. Risk. Women are biologically wired to respond to men who embody danger. Not reckless danger, but the kind of man who takes calculated risks and walks through fear like it doesn't exist. Why? Because risk signals survival. It signals fearlessness, and it signals strength that others lack. Dark psychology shows that when a man embraces risk, he becomes unforgettable. Women imagine themselves swept into his world, where adrenaline and attraction blur together. That rush of danger, mixed with desire, often pushes her over the edge into intimacy. This is the Machiavellian principle of boldness. Fortune favors the bold. And in attraction, boldness is the psychological key that unlocks her deepest fantasies. When a man lives with unapologetic confidence, when he carries himself as if nothing can stop him, women don't just want him, they feel compelled by him. And that compulsion is the hidden force that makes her give in. But let's dig into why this works on such a deep, primal level. Throughout human evolution, women have been the selectors. They choose who gets to pass on their genes, and that choice has always been influenced by one critical question: which man gives our offspring the best chance of survival? In ancient times, that meant the man who could face the saber-toothed tiger, the man who could lead the hunt, the man who could protect the tribe from threats, the man willing to take risks when others cowered. These men didn't just survive, they thrived. And women who chose these men had children who were more likely to thrive as well. That biological programming hasn't changed. It's still there, buried deep in the female psyche. When a woman encounters a man who embodies risk, who starts the business when others play it safe, who speaks his truth when others stay silent, who makes the bold move when others hesitate, something ancient awakens in her. She doesn't think about this consciously. She doesn't say to herself, "This man takes risks, therefore he must have good genes." It happens beneath conscious thought. It's a feeling, a pull, an attraction she can't quite explain, but also can't resist. This is why women are drawn to entrepreneurs, to artists, to men who have chosen uncertain paths over comfortable ones. It's why the musician struggling to make it often attracts more women than the accountant with a stable job. Not because women don't value stability. They do, but because risk signals something deeper. It signals that this man trusts himself enough to bet on himself. And that self-trust is intoxicating. But here's what most men get wrong about risk. They think it means being reckless. It doesn't. True risk is calculated. It's confidence backed by competence. It's the willingness to face uncertainty because you trust your ability to handle whatever comes. When you approach her when other men are too afraid to, that's risk. When you escalate physically at the right moment, despite the possibility of rejection, that's risk. When you express your desires clearly instead of hiding behind friendship, that's risk. When you walk away from something that doesn't serve you, even if it means being alone, that's risk. Each of these moments of boldness registers in her mind as strength. And strength, in the realm of attraction, is everything. She wants to feel safe, but not bored. She wants security, but not predictability. The man who embodies controlled risk offers both. He's dangerous enough to be exciting, but controlled enough to be safe. That combination is devastatingly attractive. There's also a social proof element to risk-taking. When other people see a man taking bold action, he naturally rises in status. Status is one of the most powerful attractors for women. The man who commands a room, who leads conversations, who isn't afraid to disagree or stand out, he signals high status. And high status triggers attraction at a biological level. Ever wondered why women fall for men who seem dangerous, yet in control? This is why. It's not just attraction, it's biology and psychology conspiring together. The safe man gets her friendship. The reckless man gets her concern. But the bold man who takes calculated risks, he gets her obsession. He gets her at 2 a.m. when she can't sleep because she's thinking about him. He gets the version of her that other men never see. So, these are the 4 hidden psychological triggers that make women sleep with men: emotional dominance, mystery, selective validation, and the dark confidence of risk. Women will never admit this openly. Society has taught them to say they want kindness, communication, and emotional availability. And they do want these things, but only from a man who first triggers these deeper, darker responses. The truth is, attraction doesn't happen in the logical mind. It happens in the primal brain, in the subconscious, in places where social conditioning hasn't fully reached. These triggers bypass logic and awaken primal desire because they speak to something ancient within her. The man who masters them doesn't beg for attention. He doesn't chase. He doesn't try to impress. He simply is. And that alone is enough to flip the subconscious switch most men never even see. Most men are operating with the wrong map. They're trying to logically convince women to be attracted to them. They're listing their qualities like a resume. They're being nice and hoping it translates to desire. But attraction doesn't work that way. Attraction is not a choice. It's a response. And these 4 triggers create that response more powerfully than any logical argument ever could. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds manipulative, and I'll be honest with you. Knowledge is neutral. A knife can be used to prepare food or to harm. The same is true of psychological understanding. These principles can be used to create genuine, powerful connections with women who are right for you. Or they can be misused. My hope is that you use this knowledge with integrity. That you become the kind of man who doesn't need tricks because he's genuinely developed these qualities. Because when emotional dominance comes from real self-mastery, when mystery comes from having a genuinely interesting life, when selective validation comes from having actual standards, and when risk comes from real confidence, you're not manipulating anyone. You're simply being the most attractive version of yourself. And that version of you? She's been waiting for him. If you enjoyed this dive into Machiavelli's dark secrets of attraction, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications because this is just the beginning. And don't stop here. Check out the other videos on this channel to uncover even more wisdom, truth, and hidden psychology about love, desire, and power. Trust me, you won't see relationships the same way again. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay bold, stay mysterious, and remember,